Welcome to the podcast, The Unselfish Purpose of Life. Over 15 years ago, I started at a radio station with a monthly show on the purpose and value of unfolding the full potential of life. The discussion centered around the most basic value of life, which is consciousness, and the many angles and disciplines to understand its value in active, daily, responsible life. Consciousness is the basis for our perceptions of the world. It comprises levels of wakefulness, awareness. And that's a very brief definition. We'll continue to explore this important aspect of life as we move along in the podcasts. Many of the radio shows I did, the station wound up translating into podcasts and are on the station's website. And since podcasts are more popular today, I decided to do a little editing, updating, and find a different placement for greater exposure. And by the way, that radio station, it's not public or commercial, but it's listener supported. So they can play, and they do play the most interesting music, and they have a few inspiring talk shows, and that's the reason why I had one. So if you want to find it, it's streaming online at wpkn.org. And some of the podcasts that I did, they're interviews with people who are experts in their field, and some are me just winging it. And this podcast is one of those. It's just me talking to myself. So who am I? Well, my name is Kathy Connor, and I've been exploring the field of human potential for more than 50 years. I am a certified teacher of the Transcendental Meditation Program, and I teach this very specific and very special technique in the public. And in this podcast, entitled Happy, let's talk about happiness. We hear it in songs, just to name a few. Don't worry, be happy. That's the first one that came to my mind. Don't worry, be happy. And happy together. Remember that one? You have to be of a certain generation to remember that one. And of course, there's Happy by Pharrell Williams. But did you know that the Rolling Stones had a song called Happy? So that's kind of interesting. And there are many songs about happiness and joy that don't even have the word in the title. There are popular college courses on happiness too, and many articles that we can find on how to have a happier life. It's a quality of life we all want. It's a quality of life we would like to have rather than the alternative. And really, when you think about it, just try to say it, but say it in an exaggerated way. Happiness. Now, when you say it, your mouth turns up like a smile. So contained in the word is the experience. The purpose of life, the unselfish purpose of life, is the expansion of happiness. Expansion of happiness is the purpose of creation, and we are all here to enjoy and radiate happiness everywhere. Well, that's really, really nice. So let's unpack it. Happiness is contentment, equanimity, stability, peace, harmony, and we can include bliss, which is a greater order of happiness, permanent and enduring, and does not have the transient quality of ordinary happiness. Now, if we say ordinary happiness, we mean the kind of happiness that doesn't last. And now, is it possible to have a lasting state of happiness, bliss even, with the ever-changing outer life, where life does go up and down? Without inner stability, we get tossed about. Deep peace, deep happiness, contentment is stable and can be there even with the changing values of outer life. Now, who wouldn't want that? Do we wake up in the morning and make a list of things that would cause stress? Well, let's start with the B's. How about a few broken bones and bankruptcy? I don't think we could put those on the list. It's not likely. But these things can happen, but we don't wish for them to happen. We don't put them on our to-do list. And we would actually prefer to avoid them if we can, because they are not happiness instigators. Now, I just made that up. We prefer things to give us more freedom, peace, stability, knowledge, happiness, and we move towards those things because we're evolving beings. We are first conscious. Consciousness is the basis of life. We are here. We are aware. And then we're moving. We're moving forward. Even physically, we arrive. We cry. We learn to turn over. Everybody's excited. We pull ourselves up on the furniture. Oh, look at her. And then we walk. We stumble a bit. Then we walk. Then we run. And then we become a world-class athlete, if we wanted to. But we started somewhere. Our list, the list we want to make, it'll probably contain things that need to be completed. There's some of those things on my list. But it'll give me some peace of mind when the dishwasher is fixed. Or call a friend that called me a few days ago. Or pick up a book by the end of the day. We want to aim to create for ourselves something peaceful, something enjoyable, so that there's some peace and quiet, even if it's at the end of a busy day. So we can conclude that the nature of life is the expansion of happiness. It's not to generate struggles and suffering, but yet that happens. But again, we don't put them on our to-do list. But even with the things that happen in life that are not happiness instigators, how do we maintain a stable state of equanimity amidst those things? And to be honest, there are many of us, many people who experience depression, and that's a lack of self-worth and deep lack of happiness. I'm not dismissing that reality, but it seems that one who does experience this would be eager to find a way out, to get out of that state of mind. Yes, depression can be quite substantial and would need professional and medical attention. And I know this from my family history. It's a real thing. But if we are in that state of mind, we are encouraged to seek professional help. We want something better than that. And I am offering, in addition to the traditional ways we handle this kind of unhappiness, or any kind of unhappiness, that there is another angle to take that can improve the quality of our happiness and begin to eliminate unhappiness. So if happiness is the preferred emotion, but if we don't have it, or we have what we might call ordinary happiness, which is temporary or situational, well, how can we improve the status of our level of happiness? We have spent our lives looking for it, but mostly on the outside of ourselves. That's for the most part anyway. And we might think, oh, this job is going to bring me some happiness. So we go ahead and we apply. Or that relationship will make me happy. And we've talked about this before, but those things can change. So if we're putting our hope for fulfillment in a transitory thing to take us out of ordinary happiness, we may very well be disappointed at some point. It doesn't mean we're not happy in the job or the relationship, but it's best to first be happy. Be content and secure within our own self. And then life in the job and the relationship is much, much better. We're not looking for something to fill a void. We already have filled it. So we are the stable part of every situation, not the external thing. If we are at peace within, if we are contented or connected to those more sublime parts of ourself, we can handle life with greater ease. If I'm experiencing more peace within myself, then I can appreciate the outer situation much better. I'm less reactive, for example, and I have more equanimity and clarity. I can handle things better. I can appreciate things more when there's clarity. And appreciation at a more significant level, well, that's love. So I can love my job and love my partner, but it's because first I am peaceful within myself for a more significant experience of the job and the partner, or anything really. The inner is always the basis for the outer. A tree has roots, even if you can't see them. Without that unseen basis of the tree can't survive. Without the inner value of life exposed and experienced in a more significant way, life can be topsy-turvy, more than necessary, and it attracts the unwanted emotions of unhappiness and disappointment. There's a treasure within every person, but we didn't emphasize unfolding that in our cultures because we became focused on achievements that can be measured in dollars and things. It's a matter of unfolding the finer values of ourself. First locate it, then stabilize it, and live it, be it. This is what the TM technique is in brief. Now, imagine we have a family home for generations, and for all of that time, every family member has left their stuff in the attic. We actually did that to my parents. Leave their stuff in the attic. So now there are piles upon piles of stuff. There are holiday decorations, Halloween costumes, old school projects, ancient computers from the 90s. Remember those? Those were quite large. And maybe some old TVs. Those were bulky too. Now the pile is really, really high, and nobody cares. They just keep adding to the pile. Well, one day, curious Cousin Claire decides to see what treasures may be in the pile, so she begins to move the pieces off little by little. Eventually, she gets to the bottom of the pile, and she finds a large envelope. Now, looking in to see what's there changes everyone's lives who lives in that house, or whoever did. It seems that great-grandpa bought stock in a very tiny company at the time called Apple, and not thinking it had much value, he tossed the documents in the attic. Well, now the family that had been struggling to pay bills can buy a new house and get junk luggers to move all that stuff out of the attic. The point here is we may not see it because it gets covered over with stuff, but there is a treasure of happiness within all of us. It's really a matter of not just locating it, but refining the nervous system to hang on to it. Both are important, and that takes time. This isn't a miracle or some sappy movie script. It takes attention to this and not just sitting waiting for life to happen. We're moving towards more happiness anyway. Why not find it within for a more stable and fulfilling, lasting experience of life? And now the physiology is key to this experience. We have a human nervous system that has the capacity for great happiness and permanent equanimity. In addition to the material body, we also have a mind, intellect, ego, and soul. None of those things you can put your finger on. So we have two aspects of life. We have the objective, the one you can put your finger on, and actually you have a finger, that's the body, and the subjective. So what I've been referring to all along is inner and outer, but now we're going to use this word, objective and subjective. And both of these experiences, the outer objective and the inner subjective, they come from the same place, and that's consciousness, but a level of consciousness that's quite pure. So it's called pure consciousness. It's not encumbered by any of this stuff. Simply put, consciousness is awareness, how we perceive the environment, and pure consciousness is the basis of the mind, the most refined value of awareness, where there is the root of the tree that has gone unnoticed. It's the basis of everything we are, subjective and objective. If we can integrate more of this kind of consciousness, more of this level of awareness into our daily active life, we actually will have greater stability, contentment, happiness, because those are the qualities of these deeper fields of the mind. Now, that's not so different than what quantum physics tells us, that energy fields are the basis of matter fields. The subtle supports the gross. The contractor creates a foundation before the building is constructed. These are things we know. Why aren't we applying that to our life? There are additional names for this state of mind, pure consciousness. We can call it absolute because it's non-changing, it's permanent. We can call it being. We can also call it the source of thought. And its quality is clarity, peacefulness, and bliss. And bliss, as I mentioned, is a greater form of happiness. This is where it's concentrated. This state of life is already there. It already exists in us. It's now a matter of connecting to it systematically. It's not going to happen overnight. So it can be lively in our experience and at the same time generate a more refined nervous system that can maintain the experience so it's not just a hit or miss thing, or let's say a good story to tell, as many have extolled. Oh, one day I was connected to everything and I felt that I had no enemies and love was pervading, and then I had to drive the highway. Someone cut me off and, oh, it's gone now. The nervous system should hold on to this experience even when challenged. So that's the difference between having a technique for efficiency of experience, unfolding it and stabilizing it, and a one-hit wonder. If we've spent the majority of our lives in the outer material world, we may not know this level of life. It may sound fantastic, but we do know happiness. We've had happiness. We may know only the tree with its trunk limbs and lovely leaves and flowers. There's beautiful things on the tree. But if we have never seen the roots that hold up the tree, we might doubt that they even exist. But there have been descriptions of this state of life through time. Many have experienced it. Maybe even we have, you have. And they told someone about it, or they wrote about it. Nearly every religion has said the kingdom of heaven is within. Now, what does that really mean? But to give a few examples, particularly those experiences of people where joy and happiness were a part of the experience, I want to share some things with you. I am happy to share these things with you from a wonderful book by a colleague of mine called The Supreme Awakening, Experiences of Enlightenment Through Time and How to Cultivate Them. This book was written by Dr. Craig Pearson, and in the next podcast, I'm going to share with you an interview I did with him a few years ago. So we're going to travel through the ages a little bit with a few examples of experiences of this deep peace within, but I wanted to start with a more current example that's in the book. It's in this person's biography. She's a world-class athlete who changed the face of women's sports, Billie Jean King. If you know who she is or you don't, look her up. She was an amazing tennis player. In her own words, in her biography, she says, and I'm going to condense a little bit to shorten the thing, but this is the gist of it. This is what she says. On my very best days, I have this fantastic, utterly unself-conscious feeling of invincibility. I don't worry about how I'm hitting the ball, and I hardly notice my opponent at all. It's like I'm out there by myself. When I am in that kind of state, I feel that tennis is an art form that's capable of moving both the players and the audience. When I am performing at my absolute best, I think that some of the euphoria that I feel must be transmitted to the audience. Now, there's a little bit more to the quote, but I'm going to skip a little bit and go to another part of her quote because this is the part I like. She says, my heart pounds, my eyes get damp, and my ears feel like they're wiggling. But it's also just totally peaceful. And when that happens, I want to stop the match, grab the microphone and shout, this is what it's about, because it is. It's not the big prize I'm going to win at the end of the match or anything else. It's just having done something that's totally pure and having experienced the perfect emotion. Okay. Now, I wouldn't be surprised that many world-class athletes have had an experience similar. They call it the zone, and runners call it a runner's high. But let's go on with going way, way in the past now, maybe a few thousand years, to Lao Tzu. And he was regarded as the founder of Taoism. His name means venerable master. He was known in his time for being a very wise person. He most likely lived in the 6th century BC. I don't think anyone's 100% sure when he was around, but let's just say it was a long time ago. So when he was older, people asked him to write down his wisdom, and that is now called the Tao Te Ching. And there's a passage that stands out to me where he says, where there is silence, one finds peace. Where there is silence, one finds the anchor of the universe within himself. Okay, now let's travel a little bit further up in time to Rumi, who probably lived about 800 years ago, and he's considered the greatest poet in the Persian language. So a few sections from one of his poems reads, although you appear in earthly form, your essence is pure consciousness. You are the fearless guardian of divine light. So come, return to the root of your own soul. And later on, another passage in the same poem reads, you are a ruby encased in granite. How long will you deceive us with this outer show? O friend, we can see the truth in your eyes. So come, return to the root of your own soul. Now, moving up a little bit in time, we're going to talk about St. Teresa of Avila, and she describes an experience. There sometimes springs an interior peace and quietude which is full of happiness, for the soul is in such a state that it thinks there is nothing that it lacks. Okay, moving up in time, we're heading into Walt Whitman, one of my favorites. In his poem, The Mystic Trumpeter, he says, war, sorrow, suffering gone, the rank earth purged, nothing but joy left, the ocean filled with joy, the atmosphere all joy, 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 in freedom, worship, love, joy in the ecstasy of life, enough to merely be, enough to breathe, joy, joy, all over joy. Well, I imagine he was a pretty happy guy. And finally, for some reason, I really enjoy reading about this particular person, so I wanted to include it in the experiences. He's a little more modern, although he passed away in the 80s, I believe. Howard Thurman. And Howard was a minister, an author, a philosopher, a theologian. He was an educator, a civil rights leader, and particularly mentor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was the one who introduced Dr. King to the philosophies of Gandhi. There's a passage from his book called The Inward Journey where he says, "There are other moments when one becomes aware of the thrust of the tingling joy that rises deep within until it bursts forth in radiating happiness that bathes all of life in its glory and its warmth. Pain, sorrow, grief are seen as joy becoming, and life gives a vote of confidence to itself, defining its meaning with a sureness that shatters every doubt concerning the broad, free purpose of its goodness." Now, there are so many examples of people through time, and we've had these glimpses ourselves. But what we would prefer is that it's not just a glimpse. To attain this level of life doesn't require an additional lobe in your brain. Well, that's good news. These great and wise, some saints, some are sages, and often ordinary people, we have the same hardware and software as the rest of us. We all have the same. So what's the difference in people who have these more sublime experiences of joy and happiness? It's how much of the finer field of life, how much of that being, is part of one's pure experience due to the refined physiology. Now, during the TM technique, the mind settles and the body does too. They are connected. So the body has to come for the ride, even though this is a mental technique. Research shows that the mind becomes orderly with a brainwave pattern called alpha-1, and increased coherence between the parts of the brain, which is how the brain communicates. For the body, respiration decreases, cortisol levels are less. These are physiological indicators, measurable indicators of a different kind of experience. It's a deep yet different kind of rest. The mind's awake, the body is significantly rested. So we call it restful alertness or transcendental consciousness, which is now a fourth state, different from the other relative states of waking, dreaming, sleeping. This fourth state is necessary for the body to repair. It removes barriers of stress and strain that we've accumulated that sleep's not addressing. Now, sleep has a lot to do. It's an incredibly important state of consciousness, but this is a different kind of rest and a different experience. So the mind-body has a chance to do two things. It locates these quiet levels because the mind is settling into them, experiencing the more subtle and refined values of itself. And at the same time, the body cooperates by removing the roadblocks. It's a gradual, systematic process, but in the long run, it results in the same kind of special yet stable experiences that we just heard about. Self-realization is knowing that level, knowing who you really are. That is part of what we are. To experience this state is to access it easily because it's simple and subtle, which means concerted effort won't be effective. I call it the cosmic hamster wheel. If we're trying to have peace, if we're trying to have something, if we're trying, we're going in the wrong direction. We keep running. So how do we find it? Well, it could be quite by accident. So in some unique cases, that has happened. Or a technique is more efficient. It opens our awareness to the inner fields of the mind more easily, more effectively, and allows the experience to grow in a systematic and stable manner. The TM technique is a simple, natural program for the mind to experience its full range. It takes the mind from the gross to the subtle because it's based on the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is the same as the nature of life, to move in the direction of increasing happiness. Now, this kind of happiness is well beyond what we may call pleasure or situational happiness. It's rich and vibrant. It's self-aware, stable. It's a state of equanimity, tranquil and fulfilling. It's a reservoir of creative intelligence, energy, and wisdom. Thinking is reduced naturally in this practice and without trying to accomplish something, because that will continue to keep the mind in the familiar. And by trying, which is what a lot of us try to do to have this, trying, let's look at that word. It's a verb. So we're increasing or introducing energy. Verbs create more activity. If the mind is settling, you're interrupting it. It's simple, not hard, not concentrating, not even managing. We're going in a different direction now, have to have different rules. There's very few. Transcending the familiar to experience finer levels of the mind. As mental activity is reduced, naturally we find that settled state for mind and body. And trying to do that, again, is counterproductive. If we're adding a verb to the mix, it's not going to really work the same. The cosmic hamster wheel. To become familiar with these levels of the mind, it allows the physiology to maintain the experience in the midst of dynamic activity over time. It's not overnight. You plant the seed, it's not a tree the next day. That's a fairy tale. But it's growing. Now, this process of TM can be compared to taking a deep dive rather than a relaxing swim or a snorkel. As the mind is more familiar with these levels, those levels of the mind are more illuminated and activated, and the inner state is now familiar in the outer. This is the process of removing the stuff and finding the treasure. And again, not overnight, but my point here is that it is there. It's a matter of getting started and letting those latent faculties reveal themselves, enriching life. The inward direction the mind takes in the TM technique leads to self-realization, which is knowing who we really are. And we are without those trappings and limitations and stresses that we've accumulated. Well, that's not really who we are. Equanimity means we are less affected by the ups and downs and can manage outer life from a platform of evenness and wider perception. But it doesn't mean stress no longer happens. That would be nice. You don't get a bumper sticker, please don't cut me off. That's not going to work. It means the physiology is more resilient and can handle better what comes at it because it is already in a state of balance or restful alertness, we can say. So that's a very important part of the formula. Cleanup, refining the physiology is necessary. That happens effortlessly, we could say naturally, because it's the nature of the physiology of the body to get rid of this stuff. That happens during the technique due to the unique rest that one experiences during the TM technique. This inward move of the mind increases a rested state so the body can do its thing. After TM, there are numerous studies, hundreds really, indicating the result of less stress, such as better heart health, less anxiety, and many, many studies showing improved health and well-being. So, how can we cure unhappiness to have a happier life? Okay, well, another analogy for you. If we're in a dark room, we put on the light. Even a soft light will change the room. If we are not fulfilled, if we are overwhelmed by stress and anxiety, even a little light of consciousness changes the room. Yes, we have to continue. Why didn't I lose 30 pounds? I was on the treadmill for 30 minutes. Well, Kathy, it doesn't quite work that way. You can lose the 30 pounds, but you have to come back. That takes more than 30 minutes. Decide to do something to improve life. A good direction is to start with yourself, and that's with a big S, and encourage it to be all the time that big S. That means your essence, your true nature. We don't have to examine the darkness. We can put our attention on the light. We do the work to bring out happiness. And the work is pretty easy. You do it with your eyes closed. We do the work that Cousin Claire did. We're removing the stuff from the generations old pile and finding the treasure. Bring out happiness, and unhappiness begins to recede. Both the inner and outer aspects of life are there. The outer has been emphasized, by our culture, but with access to unfolding the inner value of life, both can exist together for a fulfilling life. Inner peace and happiness are of a more stable and permanent nature, but we continue to experience outer life, and there are ups and downs, but we are more resilient to handle the downs, and the ups are even more enjoyable. But this kind of experience is based on the permanence of inner peace and happiness, which is much more significant than what the senses provide with its temporary taste of happiness. Transcend means going beyond. We're going beyond that experience. We're going beyond the boundaries that restrict us. It's not just a phrase, it's an experience, and it's a reality that many have experienced. The flow of the mind from the outside to the inside is natural when given the right direction. Don't sit there and wait for it. You have to give it the right direction. The mind continuously searches for happiness, and when it finds the deepest value, it'll stay there. That's why this can be permanent and integrated with active life. That becomes the basis for our outer life. The transcendental meditation technique, it's a process. It's a process of maintaining the connection between the inner and outer, enlivening drops of happiness to be enjoyed in the outer life, until the ocean of happiness is where we float our boat. I wish you deep peace and happiness, and thank you for listening.